Good evening and welcome to the Daily Report with me, Victor Muyakane. Ladies and gentlemen, in the history of Kenyan politics, like sands shifting across the dunes, there's been many different changes, many different faces. But it looks like the more things change, the more they remain the same. However, in the shifting sands of Kenya's politics, there's been some mainstays, there's been some abiding moments, abiding personalities, and one of those is none other than the Honorable Martha Karua. We shall be having a conversation with her later on. But today you have seen some of the nominees going through the vetting process in Parliament. We have in store for you conversations around that as well. We show you exactly what went down in Parliament, what were the highlights of that particular process. And speaking of the highlights, let's have some right about now. We'll be back in a moment. Tonight,
I, Kindiki, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee.
I, Dr. Deborah Mlongo Barasa, do swear that the evidence I shall give before the committee.
The vetting of Cabinet Secretary nominees commences in Parliament, sparking questions regarding the net worth of some candidates.
You have had some nominal growth.
Kido.
You've grown by 100 million.
The Commission on Administrative Justice requests an explanation from the National Registration Bureau on the prolonged wait times for Kenyans to obtain national identification documents. And weeks after the discovery of mutilated female bodies at the Kware dumpsite in Mukuru, Kwanjenga, residents are now calling upon the government to help them retrieve some other bodies suspected to remain at the dumpsite.
Serikali yetu ndio support. Juu yenyewe kuchanga mask ni raia, vitu za kuingia huko ndani ndo watoe mwili ni raia. Serikali hawatu support.
Now, my dear viewers, as we begin this journey, the questions are mine, but the answers are yours. I require your interaction and your engagement. And here's how you do that, through the SMS line and the WhatsApp number that will be on your screen. As for now, my colleague and I, that is Rhoda Nyamai on sign language, begin the news now. Ladies and gentlemen, for the second time, Kenyans have witnessed the public declaration of wealth by the cabinet nominees. However, what stood out was the noticeable increase by over 100 million shillings by cabinet returnees Kithure Kindiki and Alice Wahome in just 20 months. George Maringa brings it down.
Good afternoon, nominee.
Thursday. Day one of the vetting of the nominees to the position of Cabinet Secretary by the Speaker Moses Wetangula-led Appointments Committee, a process also known as confirmation hearings. Among the 22 nominees are several returnees. First on the grill was Interior CS nominee Professor Kithure Kindiki, who is making a comeback to his ministry. As is the law, cabinet secretaries are expected to declare their net worth. Kindiki, who had already crossed the $500 million shillings mark in 2022, declared his net worth again.
What is your worth?
694 million.
The net worth of the Professor of Law has increased by 150 million shillings, going by the figure he last declared in 2022.
I have two homes, one in Nairobi and one in Tharaka Nithi. Then I have landed buildings, about 235 million.
Another returnee who has also had an increase in her net worth is Lands CS nominee Alice Wahome, and it was quite an undertaking getting the figure right.
327,650,000.
She was put to task by the Speaker.
I was worth 218,400,000.
You have had some nominal growth.
Kido.
You've grown by 100 million.
I have grown in those 2 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Another comeback is by Defense CS nominee Soipan Tuya, who declared that her net worth stands at 243 million shillings, up from 156 million shillings 20 months ago. Dr. Deborah Baraza, who will hold the reins at Afya House if confirmed, also declared her net worth, albeit with a twist.
So my net worth is a combination of mine and my husband, and it's 455,845,320.
You and your husband?
Yes.
Education CS nominee Julius Ogamba, on the other hand, disclosed that his net worth totals to 790 million shillings. Earlier on, the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi on X said, as Kenyans look ahead to the vetting of cabinet secretaries, we recognize the importance of integrity in public service and the National Assembly's vital role in upholding Chapter 6 of the Kenyan Constitution. When all is said and done, at the end of the food chain are Kenyans who want service delivery. George Maringa, TV47, Nairobi.
5 Cabinet Secretary nominees have undergone scrutiny by the National Assembly's Appointments Committee, with some showing limited familiarity with their designated ministries, with MPs questioning their suitability for the roles. Among those vetted are Interior Cabinet Secretary nominee Professor Kithure Kindiki, who was pressed to explain his handling of the recent Gen Z protests, which resulted in the deaths of 42 Kenyans, at least. Meanwhile, Health Docket nominee Deborah Mulongo faced tough questions on her plans to tackle cartels within Afya House, among other critical issues. Our senior political reporter, Elizabeth Mutuku, has the details.
The National Assembly's Committee on Appointments commenced its mandate today. Minutes past 8 a.m., Interior Ministry nominee Professor Kithure Kindiki took the hot seat. MPs put Kindiki to task, demanding that he explains to the country why he deserves another chance. Without mincing words, they sought to understand his responsibility regarding the deaths of 42 Kenyans during the youth-led anti-government protests.
What makes you think you are suitable in spite of all those problems that you have encountered the last 2 months?
Generally, the police tried their best to protect the country against mobs of criminals, arsonists, and other dangerous people.
In his defense, Professor Kindiki distanced himself from the police brutality meted against Kenyans during the demonstrations. He told the committee that police officers take orders from the National Police Service, though he assured that justice will be served and the culprits brought to book.
That any officer went beyond what is allowed in terms of the use of force. It is now the work of the independent police oversight authority and other accountability agencies to help the country to bring to closure the issue of justice for excess use of force.
I, Dr. Deborah Mulongo Barasa.
The second nominee to be scrutinized by the committee was Deborah Mulongo Barasa, nominated for the health docket with a net worth of 455 million shillings. She faced tough questions as MPs put her on spot to explain how she will tackle corruption in Afya House. MPs seemed dissatisfied with her responses.
What will you do to minimize, or if possible, completely eradicate this menace of corruption in that health sector?
I think that we need to strengthen the processes and procedures that exist. And one of the ways is through a digital platform.
Others who appeared before the Appointments Committee included Migos Ogamba, nominated for the Education docket. MP sought to understand how he plans to address challenges related to university funding. Some questioned why, with a net worth of 790 million shillings, he chose to serve in the education sector, and whether his nomination was politically motivated.
And the solution to that is to ensure that we are able to come up with a fund that will totally cover the costs of education in the country.
Defense nominee Soipan Tuya was also questioned about her suitability for the position and how she plans to address the challenges in the defense sector, including the new relations with NATO. Meanwhile, Land CS Alice Waome faced scrutiny over the controversial land bill and its intended purpose.
Freeholds within the cities then therefore are enjoying facilities and they are paying nothing.
The committee is expected to continue with its exercise tomorrow. Elizabeth Mutuko, TV47 Palm Buildings, Nairobi.
And back to that process, Interior Ministry nominee Professor Kithure Kindiki was the first interviewee to face scrutiny from members of Parliament, with the committee members greeting him and raising substantial questions regarding his approach to managing protesters if reinstated as the CS for Interior Security. Parliamentarians probed him on why he did not resign despite intense clashes between security forces and protesters. Ruga Ival now provides a detailed report on the proceedings.
Professor Kithure Kindiki, the prospective Cabinet Secretary for Internal Security in Kenya, appeared before the National Assembly's Committee on Appointments, Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah, the majority leader, inquiring about the way forward regarding demonstrations in Kenya.
That 20-40 people can be killed around one small area like Kware.
Kindiki responding by indicating that if he were to return to the office, the first step would be to define where Kenyans should protest.
Protesters who want to present petitions can stand, demonstrate and present petitions to that public office or that public institution.
A heated exchange was witnessed inside the parliamentary buildings as Professor Kindiki underwent extensive questioning.
Kind of thing that happened, in my view, you look like somebody was lost. Your presence was not being felt. Your omnipresence was not being felt, if I may say so, because you could see abductions were happening.
Kindiki presented several proposals, particularly concerning laws related to maintaining security in Kenya. He referenced the Public Order Act to clarify how police officers should engage with protesters on days of demonstrations.
Obligate the police to escort protesters and provide security for them, but also to ensure protesters don't run amok and overrun members of the public who are not protesting.
Additionally, Kindiki suggested that there should be designated areas where protesters can present their petitions, especially within areas that are protected.
All public institutions to designate an area within their premises or within the vicinity of their premises where a group of protesters who want to present petitions can stand, demonstrate and present petitions to that public office or that public institution.
Member of Parliament Robert Mbui from Kathiani did not spare Kindiki either, questioning why he had not resigned despite pressure from civil society organizations and citizens following the deaths of over 60 people due to the Gen Z protest. In response, the nominee stated that all police officers who used excessive force against protesters would face the law. Ruga Ival, TV47.
In other news, the cabinet nominee for the Ministry of Cooperatives, Wycliffe Oparanya, has termed a letter by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, to have him disqualified by Parliament as malicious. Oparanya, through his lawyers, Marende and Nyaundi advocates, in a letter seen by TV47, has now written to the National Assembly informing Parliament that he was cleared by the Director of Public Prosecutions on the 8th of July for lack of sufficient evidence. Oparanya has questioned why EACC has ignored the Director of Public Prosecutions' request to close the file. And there you have it. But in other news, the Health Ministry, through Health Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni, has urged Kenyans to exercise calm following a recent announcement on the outbreak of Mpox yesterday in Taita Taveta at the border point. The ministry has revealed that it is working to ensure the spread is contained, even as the first patient has already been quarantined and contact tracing begins. One thing to realize, of course, is Mpox is what used to be formerly known as monkeypox. And Odida with the details.
In the wake of the first reported case of Mpox in Kenya yesterday, the Principal Secretary of Health, Mary Muthoni, has urged the public to remain calm as the Ministry of Health takes decisive action to address the situation.
I want people to remain calm again. I know we issued an advisory the other day that kuna monkeypox.
According to PS Muthoni, so far the initial patient has been placed in quarantine and the ministry is tracing contacts and testing suspected cases.
And we have been able to isolate this patient after testing.
The public has been cautioned to avoid close contact with individuals exhibiting symptoms of Mpox, which include a distinctive skin rash, fever, headaches, and swollen lymph nodes. To curb this spread, Kenyans are encouraged to practice stringent hygiene measures such as frequent hand washing with soap and water or using hand sanitizers. The ministry advises that anyone displaying symptoms should seek immediate medical attention and avoid close contact with others. While there is no specific treatment for Mpox, supportive care including rest, hydration and pain relief can aid in recovery.
We are yet to confirm how many people he was with. So we have deployed our health teams to Taita Taveta for the response.
Part of a global multi-country outbreak since May 2022, saw peak cases in August 2022 and June to November 2023. As Kenya navigates this new health challenge, the ministry's proactive measures aim to safeguard public health and ensure the nation remains resilient in the face of this emerging threat. Ann Odida, TV47.
Tonight, Azimio coalition principals have demanded the exit of coalition leader Raila Odinga, saying he is no longer part of the coalition after joining President William Ruto's administration. The principals, led by Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, now want the Azimio Council chairperson, that is retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, to urgently convene a coalition meeting where the coalition will seal the fate of Odinga and the coalition. Apollo Kamau reports.
In a show of defiance and opposition to Azimio leader Raila Odinga, the opposition leader partners in the once vibrant opposition outfit want him to quit for his dalliance with President William Ruto. Azimio affiliate parties Wiper, Jubilee, DAP Kenya and PNU say Odinga has betrayed the principles of the Constitution and the opposition, and that his stay in Azimio is no longer tenable.
Azimio will have a retreat and we are going to discuss all these things and give some very clear direction on the vibrancy of the opposition. Because issues still continue. You cannot be one leg here and another leg there. People need clarity.
Azimio ni nyumba ambayo tulitengeneza sisi wote. Na tunataka kufagia hiyo nyumba badala ya kutoka kutengeneza ingine. Na njia ya kufagia ni kuhakikisha kama kuna mtu ambaye anataka kuwa kwa serikali, aende awe kwa serikali. Na sisi ambao hatutaki kuwa kwa serikali kwa sababu Azimio ni muungano wa upinzani, sisi tuweze kukaa.
The pressure on Odinga comes ahead of a much-awaited coalition meeting, which the principals want Azimio Council Chair, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, to convene and take a common position on the coalition that will either endorse Odinga's exit or the dissolution of the opposition outfit.
He is on his way to the AU, and as he leaves, we will definitely make changes in the leadership of the coalition, and we're in the process of formalizing that, because he cannot both be the chair of AU and remain leader of Azimio and even leader of ODM.
You are leader of a party in opposition, you are leader of a party in government. you have a new bride, uko bele, unaangalia, unaenda pande hiyo. That is not something that is tenable in our current situation. We need to remain focused. We need to remain clear-minded as to what are we talking about, and we are saying that Kenyans have rejected the Ruto administration.
A 3-hour Wednesday meeting between Odinga and the principals failed to bear fruit after Odinga failed to convince his fellow principals on why he joined government without consulting them, and ODM reallocating itself parliamentary seats without the input of the coalition partners following the nomination of 4 of its members to the cabinet. The onus now is on Azimio chairperson, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, to convene what will be a make-or-break meeting to seal the coalition's fate after ODM joined Kenya Kwanza. Apul Kamau, TV47 at PNU headquarters.
Now, 3 weeks after the discovery of mutilated bodies that were dismembered and found at the Kware dumpsite in Mukuru-Kwanjenga slums, the locals have now called upon the president and the government as a whole to help them to retrieve another batch of bodies suspected to still remain at the dumpsite. Samira Mohammed with the details.
This was the situation at the Kware dumpsite 3 weeks after the shocking discovery of female mutilated bodies at the site. In here, we observe sacks which resembles what was collected at the dumpsite, with the remains of female mutilated bodies seen floating. The local residents have volunteered to retrieve the remaining bodies themselves after what they termed as negligence by the government.
Gafa, hakuna support kubwa tumepata kwa Gafa. Gafa ifanyi fiti. Jana imetuahidi itaweka kitu, hatujaona kitu.
Wameachilia sana, watu wanatuamili kwa shimo. Tunaendelea na shughuli hapa lakini hatuoni support yote.
The divers have lamented on lack of support from the Nairobi County government and the national government, and are now calling upon President William Ruto to come to their rescue and help them retrieve the remaining bodies at the dump sites.
So tunapili kwa serikali wajikakamue. So pia hata county government pia sakaja. Governor ndiye baba wa county, na pia tujaona any support kutoka kwake. Ndio maana na appeal kwa president. Pia sisi after hii shughuli vijana tunataka kuona.
The residents claim that they suspect that more bodies could be found at the dump site following the confession by the serial killer who confessed to have killed 42 women and disposed their bodies at the dump site.
So tunaomba serikali sana wapeane support yao hapa.
Exactly 3 weeks after the mysterious discovery of female mutilated bodies at the Nairobi Kware dump site, Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, the Cabinet Secretary nominee for Interior, appeared before the Committee of Appointments after his reappointment by President William Ruto, and the Kware death incidents haunted him.
We have seen in the recent past Kware here in Nairobi. In a country like ours, how is it possible that 20-40 people can be killed around one small area like Kware?
In his defense, Kindiki attributed the Kware dump site murders to the structural deficiencies within Nyumba Kumi and the National Government Administration Officers frameworks, where he further faulted the gaps in the security agencies.
Recently, we had an incident which is actively under investigations around Kware area. Again, the same reasons: gaps in the Ngao and Nyumba Kumi structures, and also our intelligence collection ability. I want to assure the people of Kenya, if I am approved, one of my priorities will be to make sure all arms of all agencies of the state must proceed as a way of making sure that we do not have this kind of thing happening again.
With the mystery surrounding the Kware dump site killings, the residents are left with questions on the functions of the county disaster management team, and are now calling upon Governor Sakaja to ensure that the dump site is cleared and all bodies retrieved.
Gava mnafaa kuwa hapa, MP hapa onekani, MC onekani, viongozi hawaonekani, hata Sakaja mwenyewe hajai kanyaga huku.
Samira Mohammed, TV47.
A number of Kenyans, particularly younger Kenyans, are now struggling to obtain identification cards. This follows the government's push to introduce the third generation ID, popularly known as Maisha Card. And now the Interior Ministry nominee, Professor Kithure Kindiki, has attributed this delay to court injunctions affecting the departments responsible for the issuance of these documents. Paul Kirobi gives us more.
At the Huduma Center where national identification cards are issued, a troubling trend has emerged among frustrated young people who are still waiting for their IDs. Many are perplexed as to why government officials are taking so long to issue the crucial documents. Some have been waiting for nearly 6 months since they applied, which has halted their access to other government services. One example is Brian Malela, a resident of Kasarani constituency, who applied for his national ID 4 months ago, but is still waiting for its issuance.
Bado nimeambiwa nikuje baada ya mwezi 3 ndo nitapata ID yangu, na imeniweka sana, siwezi fanya vitu bila ID. Yeye ameniambia after 3 months tena nirudi.
This move has now forced some youth and other Kenyans in general to postpone some activities that require an identification document. This situation is affecting not just residents in Nairobi, but also those in Thika, as a number of Thika residents are experiencing difficulties accessing various government services due to the lack of their national identification cards.
Natumia fare yangu, napata ID bado hujatoka. Sasa nikatumwa NSSF, nikaambia huko ndio inaweza toka haraka. Kwenda huko NSSF, saa tena wameniambia ati ile picha nilipigwa ya ID haikutoka vizuri.
Appearing before the National Assembly, CS nominee for Interior Kithure Kindiki explained that the delay in issuing ID cards has been due to complications in the rollout of the third generation ID, commonly known as Maisha Number, which has encountered court setbacks.
It's because of court orders. Last year, between November and March this year, there was a court injunction against us issuing IDs, which brought a huge backlog of almost 600,000. We cleared that backlog. We were actually left with 92,000.
Despite the government pushing the project, some Kenyans have already rejected the need to have their new ID. Justice Lawrence Mugambi of the High Court suspended the implementation of the Maisha Number, the third generation ID card, the Maisha Digital ID, and the consolidation of them into a single database. Meanwhile, the Commission on Administrative Justice CAJ, also known as the Ombudsman, has requested clarification from the National Registration Bureau regarding the prolonged delays in issuing national identification documents. The CAJ has asked the Bureau's director to address concerns about the extended wait times, which are preventing citizens from accessing various services. In a statement, the Ombudsman said the Commission has given the Director of the National Registration Bureau 7 days to respond to the issues of delays in issuing identification documents. This demand follows numerous complaints on various media platforms about the slow processing and issuance of ID cards. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me in the last half hour or so as we took a walk around our country in regard to the news. We want to take a short break. When we come back, we will have that interview with the personality that I spoke to you about, none other than the Honorable Martha Karua. Now, here's how you can take part in that interview. The SMS line will be on your screen. My producers will put the WhatsApp number on the screen and I'll be able to get your WhatsApp messages directly right here. And if you do have any questions or comments, I'll be able to channel them to the Honorable Karua. Ladies and gentlemen, take a short break. We'll be right back with more.
there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Good evening and welcome to Insight Tonight. Like I said earlier, tonight we are blessed to have the Honorable Martha Karua with us tonight. She is a household name in Kenya. No stranger to the political field, an outstanding politician and legislator, a former minister in her own right in the dockets of water management as well as justice and constitutional affairs, an alumni in the struggle of multi-party democracy and a prominent member of the opposition political movements. Outspoken and principled are words that have been used to describe her. Tonight, we welcome to the home of untold stories, the Honorable Martha Karua. Karibu, madam. Good evening.
Asante. Evening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and it's wonderful to connect with you tonight. I suppose Kenyans want to know, from where you sit, from your perspective, what times are we living in as a country?
I think very trying times. We have seen the abandonment of the rule of law. We have seen death squads deployed to kill, maim, and injure peaceful demonstrators. We have seen arbitrary arrests, abductions, and all manner of intimidation against those who dare express their views or stand up for civil liberties. We have seen the government repurpose to benefit the ruling elite to the detriment of citizens. So these are trying times.
Right, right. Thank you so much for that. Now, would you care to tell us, how did we get here? Somebody might be sitting and wondering, I mean, and you've been in the political space for quite a while. You've got quite a view, hindsight as well as foresight. How did we get here?
I think that we let go our agency. We became busy and forgot that governance is the business of every citizen, that pushing the bar of accountability is the business of every citizen. It is only recently that the Gen Z have restored our collective agency as a people. And now we remember our civic duty to demand for accountability. This is something we have to do every day, every hour, eternal vigilance. That's where we dropped the ball. We forgot that it's something we have to do continuously to ensure that those elected, those put in positions of authority, serve the people in accordance with the Constitution and the laws made thereunder, and that the rule of law, transparency, and accountability are not abandoned in our country.
All right, madam. Now let's review some headlines. Over the last few weeks, some buzzwords have emerged. Please tell me what these words mean to you. First, talk about the Gen Z protests. What were your impressions? What are your lessons? And any resolutions, personally, that have emerged from that? The Gen Z protests.
For me, it's something that sounds familiar, that reminds me of yesteryears when we were protesting and demanding for accountability and adherence to the rule of law during the Moi era, during the second liberation. It is very pleasing and an exciting time to see young people, young, knowledgeable, patriotic Kenyans standing up to the authorities and demanding accountability. In a way, speaking truth to power, that you have failed us, you are not steering the nation in the manner envisaged by the Constitution. And that is why I'm saying that the Gen Z have restored our collective agency, our collective voice, questioning the leaders in place and asking for accountability. And the journey is not over. It has just begun.
Right,
reminding every Kenyan, this is your duty, this is my duty. It's not just the duty of the Gen Z.
Right, right. Thank you. And on that note, there are those who feel that the moment may be lost, that the moment may be hijacked by other forces, opportunists and others. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. The political class has attempted and somewhat hijacked this. When a statement was made that we have decided to have dialogue, that signaled the hijack or attempt to hijack. The demands were not by the political class this time. We had our time, 2023, when as Azimio, we went to the streets demanding for accountability, demanding for lowering of the cost of living, demanding for an audit of the 2022 elections, among many other things. We agreed to negotiations and the NADCO talks were born. high on the agenda was cost of living, which we agreed was the deal breaker. But we really never kept our eyes on the ball. The talks concluded without any word on the cost of living. And now the 2024 finance bill was actually making the situation worse, not any better. So we had our chance. We cannot therefore purport to answer when the Gen Z call for accountability. We say we have decided to talk. That in a way is a hijack. And I don't think we have seen the last of the Gen Z.
All right, we'll give you a moment right there as you... But here's another question, and it's emerging once again from some of the headlines that have, been seen across the nation in the last few weeks. We've seen a cabinet reshuffle 2 times in 2 parts, maybe even 3, and we've seen another term, another buzzword come across our headlines, which is broad-based government. Where do you stand on this? What are your views?
It's an unconstitutional creation. It's generally a coalition between the Kenya Kwanza government and ODM. That is what they are calling broad-based. But it is made outside of the law. Coalitions are governed by the Political Parties Act. They are not a come-we-stay union. They have to be formalized through a post-election coalition agreement. Although the ODM is saying that the 4, now 5 people appointed to government have done so as individuals, we saw Raila, the party leader, saying we have decided to talk. We saw the parliamentary group of ODM, dubbed Azimio, in which Kalonzo Musyoka was interrupted by men in black while reading a statement. We had the resolutions of the party deciding to cooperate with the government. So we have seen appointments of the top officials of the party, 2 vice chairpersons. We have seen the appointment of the chairman of the party. We have seen a lady senior official being appointed and their minority leader in parliament. We can't be told that they just walked. Like I've said, for all purposes, it's an unofficial coalition which goes against the letter and spirit of the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear that there will be a majority party and a minority party. Azimio has been playing the role of the minority party, led by ODM. And it's ODM members who have occupied the position of minority leader, both in the National Assembly and in the Senate. When ODM unofficially walks into government, they actually offend the Constitution because they are purporting that they are still in opposition, continuing to hold the positions of minority leader in both houses, meaning that as partners in government with KK, they will purport to audit themselves. The standing orders of Parliament, which mirror the Constitution, clearly stipulate that certain oversight committees, watchdog committees, will be chaired by persons in the parties in opposition, mainly the largest party in opposition, or a coalition. Therefore, it is Azimio members, mainly ODM members, who have been chairing public accounts, public investments. Both have several committees, watchdog committees. If ODM like it has failed to formalize their relationship with KK, if the members now being vetted become members of government, look at a situation where Bandi in Treasury is being audited by an ODM member chairing the Public Accounts Committee. That offends the Constitution. The government cannot lead oversighting itself. That is weakening the accountability measures. And remember, the Gen Z were on the streets clearly seeking accountability, transparency and accountability. This will increase opaqueness, offend the checks and balances in the Constitution and weaken them. It is an unholy alliance, but the law does permit them to be formal and go into a coalition that would leave the position of minority leader open to the next largest party, which would be Wiper at that time. And then Kenyans would have truly people who are outside of government oversighting government. I think this is something we have to be careful about, and I am hoping that this is going to be challenged in a court of law because it is unconstitutional, it's anti the people, it's anti-democracy. And we have seen desecration of the Constitution continuously in the Ruto administration. And now it's with aiding and abetting of one of the parties that has previously led in accountability. This is a setback for Kenya.
Right, right. Now, let's talk Azimio for a second. Anyone looking at the recent comments from you and the optics from the other partners in Azimio may be led to believe that the dream is over. Would you agree?
For NARC Kenya, it's over. We gave our notice to withdraw, and that was a notice given pursuant to a resolution of the National Executive. We said that the moment all these things are happening, the moment as opposition we start aiding and abetting in desecrating the Constitution, then there isn't much of what bound us together. So for us, it's the end. For the others, let every party speak for itself.
All right. All right. But one would argue, and perhaps you can address this, that while assuming ODM is compromised, as you say, there's still other members, other parties, other partners in Azimio. Is there a rift between NARC Kenya and them as well? Or is there an opportunity to come together and formulate yet another organization? Keeping Azimio alive, so to speak.
We are out of Azimio. What we see for now and what we can speak of is that we have expressed our desire not to be part of Azimio, and that we started pulling apart a while ago. You remember NARC Kenya rejected the NADCO report. Eugene Wamalwa and his DAPK party also rejected NADCO, and Wamalwa refused to sign. But we can't speak for them. For us as NARC Kenya, since that time, we have felt the distance between us and our coalition partners. And the straw that broke the camel's back is the recent dalliance with the KK regime, which we are supposed to be oversighting. So, and which we had clearly said we did not recognize. And our partners went ahead and started recognizing them. So for us, it's over. It's building of the party. We had agreed, even as Azimio, that each party in January this year should embark on building themselves, because the strength of the constituent parties is the strength of the coalition. Even outside of the coalition, we will strengthen ourselves. That doesn't mean that if need be in future, we cannot be part of a coalition. But for now, it's over.
All right. And I'll revisit that bit in a second. But before we let go of the Azimio matter, they say we look forward. Before we do that, let's look back in a bit. Many say the decision for you and your organization to join Azimio was a tough one for you, but yet you did. But what are your biggest regrets and lessons, if any, from your time in Azimio?
I have no regrets about joining Azimio. We weighed the options carefully, and like I said, there was baggage on both sides, but we were looking for where there were enough allies with whom we could be able to build a government that will work for the people. And therefore we consciously chose Azimio, knowing that it is a work in progress. Our dream didn't come to reality. We have worked well since the elections. You saw us being part and parcel of Azimio the whole of last year. But from the time from July, when the talks began, little cracks, efforts to repair, and eventually we are now out. And I think that's life. Yeah.
All right. I believe the Gen Z would tell you it's kuoga na kurudi soko. Now, madam, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about transitions here. Talk to us about what we should expect from you as Honorable Karua and the party that is NARC Kenya. Of course, the Secretary General of the coalition, that is Mr. Mohammed, says you need to serve 3 months' notice before exiting the coalition. Talk to us about this transition. What can Kenyans expect from you and the party as a transition?
The moment we give notice means that we have walked away. So although the formal withdrawal will be in 3 months, we have given intention that we don't feel part of them. It's like a divorce. A decree nisi, you are already apart. In 3 months, it becomes absolute. That's what it is. So we already are not part of Azimio in spirit. Technically, we can be said to be, but we have shouted out to the world that we no longer believe in that coalition. We are opposition, however, and the people who remain in the coalition are known to us, remain our friends, and those who are in opposition, not just by saying but by deed, we may still find occasion to stand together in certain matters, but not as part of the coalition.
All right. NARC Kenya is a very historic party. Even the name itself harkens to those glory days of the early 2000s, the National Rainbow Coalition of Kenya, the heyday of hope and the dreams of a new Kenya that you were part of. Mwenge, as they used to say. And now we have a question. What's going to be the new face of NARC Kenya going forward? What should Kenyans expect from you?
Watch this space. We've been in the process and we are still in the process of rebranding. I will not tell you how we will look like, but we definitely, in the coming month or two, will be rebranding. And from there, you will notice several changes, but not change in direction of working for the people. We remain a people-centered party whose ideals are informed by looking at things through the lens of social justice, of upholding people's liberties and people's rights, and fighting against corruption, because you can't serve the people without fighting corruption. So we will continue to champion those rights. But we are rebranding, we are renewing ourselves.
All right, madam. Now, we have some questions from some of our viewers, some of the questions that actually came in before and others are coming in right now. Here's one of them. Madam, why is it looking like it's so hard to find people to work with, people of integrity or people of principle to work with in the political space? Is the game too dirty for the likes of you?
Let me say this, it's not difficult to find people who others can work with. But I want us to remember, why are political parties formed? They're formed to seek power, not to seek partnership with other parties. You seek partnership as plan B. Plan A, seek the people. Now Kenya was formed, like all parties, to seek power. For now, we are talking of seeking the people. Seeking other parties is a plan B. We haven't reached plan B yet. So we are on the march to seek the people.
All right, here's another question. What will become of the Limuru 3 and the Mount Kenya question? You've been vocal about this. Where do you stand on this going forward?
Limuru 3 was a great occasion. Mount Kenya was under lock and key politically. Psychologically, people were under lock and key. It's like they couldn't come out, they couldn't complain. They had elected this government and they were feeling, I don't know whether fear or had lost their agency. Limuru 3 made them realize that they can come out physically, because they left wherever, all the corners of Mount Kenya and came to Limuru. They spoke out and they left as people clothed with their agency to question the government, to review their status. And you have seen during the Gen Z protests, Mount Kenya has been part of Kenya. So Limuru 3 achieved its purpose. And we shall continue looking to strengthen the unity of purpose within Mount Kenya and within Kenya, because strengthening any part of Kenya is strengthening the whole. Kenya is made of 47 counties, of over 44 communities, and strengthening any of those or a group of those is strengthening Kenya.
All right, all right. One of our viewers is wondering, ask Madam Karua, what position is she and her party going to go for?
I consider that a distraction. I've already said parties are formed to seek power. NARC Kenya said last year, and it still holds true, that it will field candidates for all the positions. But at this particular moment, when there is a push in the country led by our youth, the Gen Z, to seek for accountability in government, starting to talk of dreams of 2027 is a diversion from the immediate. We should be asking, have the demands of the Gen Z, which are in black and white in social media, the demands of accountability been met? Has Ruto heeded to the call of the Gen Z? And I'll begin by saying the killings are going on. Abductions are going on. No apologies for the deaths. Parents are still searching for their loved ones. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights tells us 66 people dead, confirmed dead. Over 50 missing. And more than 50 bodies unidentified in the mortuary in Nairobi. Falsifications of records in the mortuary, entering someone with a gunshot wound as a person who died of a traffic accident. We should be talking about seeking justice, which are some of the demands of the Gen Z, and seeking accountability. Giving us the same cabinet that had been dismissed. Is that lifting the bar of accountability? Or is it President Ruto telling the people that it is my way, it is his way or the highway? When Kithure Kindiki, professor, tells the vetting team that the police have a choice to kill or not kill during demonstrations, no reference to the sanctity of life in the Constitution, no reference that police have to use commensurate force in all circumstances, and therefore shooting a peaceful, unarmed demonstrator is criminal. When he fails to tell us that, does he demonstrate that he is fit for that office? Is Ruto himself fit for office by affirming criminal acts by the police and by not apologizing? These really are the questions of the day, not the positions people wish to hold. Why the Gen Z have been successful in their togetherness and demonstrations is because what is dear to them is the values, our foundational values in the constitutions, values of transparency and accountability, values of right to life and all human rights, and other values.
Right.
They are pushing for a reset button where Kenya is governed in accordance with the Constitution. They were not seeking to put anybody in power. They are not seeking power themselves.
Right.
I think this is a lesson. As a nation, let us focus more on what binds us as we push the accountability bar higher.
All
a
right.
time for elections will come, and we then shall concentrate on that.
All right. Speaking of elections, there's a question here from a viewer who is also a young politician. And she asks, and I quote, this is Wanjohi Njoroge, she asks, running for office as a young woman in 2022, I faced significant challenges including sexual harassment, the sale of my party ticket, and the prohibitive costs for hiring agents to guard my votes. Given your extensive political career and the systemic hurdles you've encountered, how have you effectively raised funds for your campaign? I think that's the first question. And the second is, what strategies have you employed to navigate and beat a political system that often works against candidates who challenge the status quo? This is a question from a viewer who's also a young upcoming politician, and I believe a question in the hearts of many young upcoming politically active Kenyans. What's your answer to that, madam?
Thank you for that question, and I'd like to say congratulations to the young lady for putting her foot forward, because many people feel the call but fear and hesitate to put their foot forward. I faced similar hurdles to you years ago, and those hurdles still are there even today. I had to shift from my original party to the Democratic Party when I was rigged out of party elections. Nominations for the general elections were near. I realized I would be similarly rigged, so I decamped and went to the Democratic Party, where the elections were as organized as Mwai Kibaki was, and where I emerged the winner, met the person in whose favor the first party had rigged, and I was able to trounce them. So you have to think there is no rule book. Every situation, look around and make a quick decision on what to do next. Remaining in a party that is oppressive to you may cost you your chance of vying, your chance of being elected. And many people, once they are disappointed the first time, withdraw. I would urge you not to withdraw. We can overcome those hurdles, and you will surely overcome. There are many things I could tell you which cannot fit here, but I have shared my journey through the CTA. I have shared my journey in a book that will be coming soon, and I'm available to talk to you and to share my experiences with you if need be.
All right, thank you for that. Young people, I hope you're paying attention to that. There's the CTA Conversations by Richard Njao on YouTube. Go ahead and follow that. And you know you heard it first from TV47. Here's a final question, perhaps, from another viewer. Josephine Wawira asks, from a political and governance standpoint, is Kenya redeemable? She goes ahead to ask, is there goodwill from the older generations to leave the stage for the younger? And finally, or is it always going to be a battlefield?
Kenya is redeemable. We cannot afford to give up on it. It is our home. It is not like a wardrobe, which you can change. This is our home. We've got to fight for our space. About us, the older generation, leaving the space to the young, it won't happen. Space is never given, it is taken. Stand up, come compete with me. Take my space. I competed, took the space of an old guard. Come and do that. Parliament and leadership will always be a space for the family. So there'll be the young, there'll be the middle-aged, and there'll be some of the old. But one would like to see more younger faces. Younger faces do not always guarantee good governance. We have younger faces in this hopeless parliament. In fact, it is the youngest parliament. The parliament I went to, at 35, I looked like a baby because it was of octogenarians. Look at a young, educated parliament letting us down. So it's not about the age. It's about the values you stand for. It's about whether you are committed to serve the people and not yourself. So let us look for leadership that mirrors Chapter 6 of the Constitution, where as Kenyans we agreed these are the leadership qualities we should look for in a leader.
All right, Madam, thank you so much for your comments this evening. Thank you for joining us on Insight tonight. We certainly hope you'll come back again, and we wish you well on all your endeavors. And as the Honorable Martha Karua said, watch this space. More is coming, and you shall see it here on the home of Untold Stories. Thank you, Madam. Good evening. May God bless you.
Asante sana.
Thank you.